Hello, this is Sam Johnson with the Minnesota State Horticultural Society's Garden-in-a-Box program. So thank you all so much for coming and joining me. I'll go through this real quick. I know that everybody's busy here. I just wanted to quickly go through Garden-in-a-Box, just give you a little idea of what it is and what we do here at the Minnesota State Horticultural Society, so you have a frame of reference. And then I'll talk through kind of what we are hoping to do for this upcoming summer, so that you can decide if joining the program is a good fit for your group of gardeners, okay? Okay. So, the Minnesota State Horticultural Society, we are actually the oldest nonprofit in the state of Minnesota. We're just over 150 years old. In that history, we've been a lot of things, but currently we're a membership-based nonprofit whose mission is to serve northern gardeners through education, encouragement, and community. And the way that we do that primarily is through our magazine, Northern Gardener, which also can be found online. So when you become a member of the Minnesota State Horticultural Society, you get a great magazine that gives you a lot of information on gardening tips and gardening activities around the state of Minnesota. And we're pretty proud of this, but we also, if you become a member, give tickets to the home and patio and home and garden shows in Minneapolis and St. Paul. And then we work with the horticultural industry to get discounts on garden supplies, etc. But in addition to that, we are a nonprofit. We do have service-based activities as well. And our two biggest are Minnesota Green, which donates surplus garden material from garden centers to garden groups in the community. It's primarily in the metro area here, and there's a $55 fee to get into it. But once you do that, then you are given access to a fantastic volume of different garden materials, a lot of vegetables, but also decorative and flowers, etc. And then, of course, Garden-in-a-Box, my program. So, Garden-in-a-Box began in 2008 as a way for the State Horticultural Society to get lower priced garden materials into the hands of people with low income. And it's expanded from that to be a little bit more active in trying to get garden information out to groups across the state of Minnesota. So, Garden-in-a-Box program was created specifically to help groups provide youth and their families experience poverty, access to healthy foods, and educational opportunities through gardening. Now, I wanted to pause there because when we talk about youth and or families experiencing poverty, we're really talking about two goals that we're trying to achieve with the Garden-in-a-Box program, and this sometimes brings confusion to different groups who are looking to see if it's a good fit for them. So when I say youth and their families experiencing poverty, our crosshairs are really youth who are experiencing poverty, but if we have a youth group that has a lot of folks who aren't necessarily poverty-stricken, that's fine. You know, we don't need to have 100% of people who identify as being below poverty level. And then if we talk about groups that have adults who are low income, so for example, adults who are differently abled, who are in a daycare program, or senior citizens who are of low income, we also work with those groups as well. So when we say groups providing youth and or families, we really do talk about two different goals here. So when you are reflecting on your group and how well it fits what we're looking for, just keep that in mind. The second part, the program provides an opportunity to experience the benefits of gardening, affordable healthy food, outdoor activity, education, and community building. The reason that we have so many different examples of the benefits of gardening is because we find that groups come to us talking about different goals they have for their own garden. So oftentimes we'll have teachers coming up talking about wanting to use their garden to educate. We will have affordable housing complexes coming up talking about using the gardens as a way to encourage people to eat healthier and get out and do outdoor activity, because it really helps with many different physical ailments and emotional ailments, etc. And we also have lots of summer youth programs, etc., that are wanting to use the garden to be able to build a sense of community. So they're placing it in parks, they're placing it in public spaces so that people can feel like those spaces give them a little bit more sense of ownership of those spaces. So we see people coming in asking for a lot of different goals through using the Garden-in-a-Box. So before I go a little bit further, I do want to acknowledge that Garden-in-a-Box is entirely grants funded. So we have very generous support from Cargill Foundation, Health Partners Young Power, St. Paul Garden Club, and this year we are working with Ramsey County, their SHIP, Statewide Health Improvement Partnership, to provide garden opportunities in Ramsey County specifically. So if your group is in Ramsey County, you might have a little bit of a leg up here. So the other partners that we want to acknowledge are the folks who make the program possible. So when we are talking about Garden-in-a-Box, we are talking about providing materials to groups. And the reason that we can provide those materials free of charge is because we get all our plants from Wagner's at a very, very affordable rate. And for this year, we are looking to provide first-year groups with a milieu of different vegetable plants and even a fruit plant as well. So we are giving out marigolds, basil, onions, tomatoes, sweet peppers, strawberries, and cucumbers to our first-year groups. And we'll also give you a choice of 2 packs of seeds. And those plants go into a growing medium that we provide through creekside soil and compost, and also sustained fertilizer. And all of that goes into our garden beds. So these garden beds are provided by Garden Circles, and they're about 3 foot diameter, and you can apply for up to 10 of them. Additionally, if you have a garden that needs a little protection from critters, you can ask for caging that we receive from BFG Supply Company, and we also have tomato cages that are from there as well. And then, as I said before, you will have a choice of 2 packs of seeds from Seed Saver Exchange that they donate to the program. And I'm sorry for the glitching here on PowerPoint, but we'll just keep going here just for the sake of time. So the other thing that we are trying to do to make the program a little bit more accessible is shifting online. So if you were to sign up for the program and get in, you could expect support materially, but then also through the summertime, we are providing classes and webinars to make sure that you have information support that you need. So last year we were able to provide 6 webinars throughout the season. Those were monthly how-to-do webinars that covered things like just basic garden care, engaging participants, resources that you can use in your community. And then also we try and do a lot of our application reporting online as well, just to make it a little bit easier for everybody across the state. So as I said before, people find so many different benefits in the garden. But at the end of the day, we're really looking to make sure that this is a great experience for everybody in there. So even if you just have people finding a little bit of surprises in the garden that they didn't expect, if you find some opportunities for peer learning, if you find some opportunities for friendship in the garden, and if you find some opportunities to take your harvest and provide it to those around you, it is a success in our book, and that's what we're looking to provide here. So whether it's an opportunity to use the garden in a cooking class and show the connection between growing your vegetables and cooking, or if you're just wanting to give everybody in your community an opportunity to have a great experience in the garden, this is going to be the program for you. So while we are talking about having many, many different benefits from the garden, we do focus on a list of preferred characteristics when it comes to our applicants. So when you are applying, just keep in mind that we're wanting folks who are working with a larger volume of youth or families or people low income. So if it's just going to be a box that you are going to use maybe with one or two other people, it's kind of a harder sell for us. We're really wanting these to be demonstration gardens. We're wanting these to be sample gardens, to be combined with other activities so that we are really reaching the maximum amount of people with this garden experience. And to that end, we're wanting to know that you are having a lot of your participants actively gardening. There's on occasion folks who come up to us and say, well, we're just going to have 1 or 2 people gardening, but then we're going to give the produce to XYZ, you know. And while that is a good benefit and we would still welcome your application, we really want to see that you're trying to engage everybody with the activity of gardening as well as using the produce for other endeavors. And of course, we all know that many hands make light work, so we're really hoping to see you demonstrate that you have multiple staff or volunteers assisting in gardening endeavors. I think for a lot of us, especially for ambitious, want to come in and be able to build this on our own, but you know as well as I do that if you have a team of people supporting this and the responsibility of maintaining the garden doesn't fall on just one person's shoulders, you have a higher rate of success. So if you can demonstrate that you have multiple staff or volunteers helping out, that's really, really important. The other thing that's important with that is that those volunteers are explicitly committing regular hours to the garden. And this is important if you are trying to form a group and you're saying, okay, well, we're going to go after this garden-in-a-box application. We're hoping to get some of these supplies. We're trying to get commitments out of our community to make sure that it's a success. Make sure that you keep in mind that it's a regular commitment throughout the season. And if you can demonstrate that in your application, it'll make it that much stronger. When it comes to the season, we are distributing in May, and we have programming going all the way through October and ending with an evaluation in October. So if you have people coming in and saying that they would like to hang out to support this program, make sure that they understand that that is a commitment. It's going to be something that's going to be going throughout the summertime. We welcome groups that are coming in and just wanting to garden, but if you have a group that is trying to add a little bit of programming to it, linking the garden to overarching educational concepts or larger programming so that folks who are gardening see connections to larger themes, that's a little bit more attractive because it just makes it that much more of a learning experience. And then, of course, as I said, making sure that they have someone tending the garden June through October. We have a lot of school groups that come in and say we'd like to use this in our classroom. Of course, then the natural question is, well, who's going to be taking care of the garden during the summertime? So it's just fine if you have your class taking care of the garden during the school year and then switching it over to some sort of summer program or summer partner that comes in and takes care of the garden. But then you have to articulate who that summer partner is, what their need is as well, and then the transition between the two, how that will work. And then lastly, we know that gardening takes more than just one season of experience, so keep in mind that when you are applying for this program, we are committing to you for 3 years. We're going to be giving you plants and materials for 3 years. So if that's a little bit bigger than what your commitment is to this, then maybe you want to step back until you're able to keep that commitment in mind. We're really hoping to build longer lasting partnerships. So if you're wondering if this is for you, keep in mind that we have partners all over the state with many different groups, childcare organizations, elementary schools, food shelves, summer programs, high schools, hospitals, park and rec centers. I mean, it really is across the spectrum. It's a little bit stronger application if we can see that you have a 501c3 status. It's a formal organization, but we aren't turning people away just because they don't have that. We know that there's a lot of gardening groups out there that don't necessarily have that formal organization behind them, but have a lot of commitments and are very strong partners. So, for example, Opportunity Partners is a group that's working with us, and they're primarily in the Western Metro. They work with adults who are differently able to come in and do day programming with them, and the garden has really allowed them to enrich that programming. Sherburne County Master Gardeners worked with Sherburne County Library to put a couple of boxes on their property there to match with youth programming that they did through the summertime. Haley Q. Brown Community Centers in St. Paul. They matched the gardens with their youth programming, and then the youth donated the garden produce to the food shelf on site there. So that was a really wonderful partnership there too. Itasca County Habitat for Humanity grabbed a couple of boxes and placed them with individual families in Itasca County there, and then had a master gardener going out and teaching nutrition classes to these families using the produce from the garden, and that was a really great program as well. So overarching, we worked with about 3,200 gardens this last, 3,200 gardeners this last summer, using about 385 boxes. 76% of them were under the age of 18, and about 2/3 of them had no gardening experience. And those who reported they had a little gardening experience were actually return groups. And so realistically, we're talking about some 95% of our gardeners hadn't gardened before working with our program. So we had 3,200 gardeners. We actually had those gardeners sharing their produce with people in their community. And so they reported that about 3,700 plus were consuming produce out of the garden. We are focused on people who don't have these opportunities otherwise, and so our groups did report to us about 73% of their participants were eligible for EBT. And we're looking to spread opportunities to try new vegetables, to reframe what it means to eat well. And so a lot of our groups reported, at least half of them reported that their participants had not eaten fruits or vegetables that were provided through this program. So some of them never eaten basil before, some of them never eaten a cucumber before. Okay. And then as you can see, in terms of that consumption outside of active gardeners, these were families of the gardeners, these were food shelves, schools, the surrounding community. So our locations are all across the state. We have our strongest presence in the metro area, but are trying to move out state as well. And we have a couple of strategies that make that a little bit easier for our outstate partners that I'll be going into a little bit. I'm going to just talk a little bit about what we need to see from the groups that are going to partner with us. So these garden kits are valued about $150 for the material, and then I work with you through the summertime, spending a lot of time making sure that this is a success. And so we do want to be able to articulate that success, and some things that we need is to see that you are able to pick up the materials from our 5 distribution sites, one of our 5 distribution sites. Show us that you're planting the boxes fully. Make the kits available to your participants at no cost. This isn't something that we're trying to make money off of, and want to have that expectation of our partners as well. I will be doing site visits this summertime just to be able to do a one-on-one and meet you in person, because we find that that's really helpful for supporting the program. And then we just need to see that you're maintaining and harvesting the garden for the full growing season. And one of the ways that we do that is a harvest estimate. So when we get into August and September, I'm going to start asking groups about how much they think they are pulling out of the boxes, whether they just record a week of harvest and then extrapolate from there, or if they're able to record what they're harvesting throughout the summertime. I try and be flexible because that's kind of difficult to quantify, but it is something that we want to see because we want to be able to know how much produce is being pulled out of there. And then at the end of it, completing a final evaluation form. So what do all these requirements look like? Well, right now we are looking at distribution sites in Grand Rapids, Wadena, New Ulm, Rochester, and then we'll be partnering with the Goodacre here in the metro area. So if any of these places are too difficult for you to get to, maybe apply anyways, but just make a note in there that you would need to work with me on finding a way to get your materials. I want to make this work for everybody, but of course we have current barriers to getting to all corners of the state. When it comes to distribution, as you can see on the right there, that is the full 10 boxes. You are given all the soil, you're given seeds, fencing, and so what that means is you need to have a way to get it from the distribution site back to your location. So people call in favors, friends who have pickup trucks, they find trailers, but this is a significant weight. You know, these bags are 40 pounds each. You're getting 11, 12 bags per kit. And so just keep in mind that transport need, because that's a real barrier for a lot of folks too. When it comes to setting up the boxes, these are just a couple of pictures of groups showing me ways that they're doing it. They're calling in all the participants, they're asking them to set the boxes up. You know, just snapping a picture or two helps me understand that what your program is doing, and shows me that everything's getting started off on the right foot. So those site visits, I do take a couple of weeks just going to each and every site across the state of Minnesota. It is something that's very labor intensive on my side, and I gotta admit, every once in a while thinking of taking it out there, but everybody says how helpful it is for me to just go there and be able to shake your hand and see what you're doing in person. It's really powerful. It's really powerful for me, so even though it's a big commitment, I do take the time to make sure that everybody gets to sit down and let me know about their program in person. And then of course I answer questions about Garden-in-a-Box and help you with your with any questions that you have. A lot of our groups are beginner gardeners, so just be able to sit there and look at the box and see how things are going is really helpful. So the harvest reports, the reason it's so important for us is because we can then turn around to people who are supporting this program and say, our groups are pulling out on average about 20 pounds of produce per box, and that means about 7,800 pounds of produce across the program. And by the way, this was from last year, and we think that these estimates are fairly low. A lot of groups have difficulty quantifying because, of course, if you don't have a scale, how are you going to be able to weigh that? If you have a lot of participants who are having a good time in the garden and see a ripe tomato, want to just pull it off the plant and pop it in their mouth, you know, we don't want program coordinators to say, wait, we have to weigh that first. We want you to be able to let everybody be in the moment in the garden and having a good time, and don't want to hold you down with reporting restrictions. So at the end of the day, we are trying to find ways to make sure that we are quantifying the harvest coming out of the garden, but not hampering your programs too much. Just keep in mind that that is a requirement. Lastly, the requirement for an evaluation at the end of the year. This is really to benefit our groups as much as benefit us. It helps us understand how the program is going, but also helps us understand what our groups are looking to do from year to year. So oftentimes people use these gardens as kind of a pilot project for building out larger gardens, and they're just trying to convince administrations or groundskeepers that this is something that will work. And so if you're able to tell us that those are your priorities, then we then can go back to people supporting the program and try and find ways to connect you with resources that will help you expand those. So that is it. I tried to make it real quick. It's about 10:30 right now. You know, beyond Garden-in-a-Box, if you have questions about the State Horticultural Society or Minnesota Green Program, if you think that might be a better fit for what you're trying to do for this summertime, you can certainly email me or just go online, www.northerngardener.org, and explore those programs and reach out to staff that are building those programs. So sample, Tom McCusick is fellow staff here who runs Minnesota Green. He's a great guy, and if you're interested in that, you can reach out to him. Laura is our outreach programs coordinator, so if you're interested in, you look online and you see that we have a class or an event that you want to sign up for, you can reach out to her to see how that works, or you could just sign up. All right, thanks again.